When Sam, now the first thing I thought about was one of the young bow shows over here was disappointed. He said only one page of notes. I thought, I said, I can draw them out with the best of them anyway, So. Sam was here last hour, and she said to me on Tuesday, what are you preaching on? And I said, Psalm 24 or Psalm 37. Haven't decided yet. Let me know when you will. What do I do in the bulletin? Put Karl speaking. I've never been any good with titles anyway, right? Wednesday, have you figured it out yet? I said, yeah, it's going to be Psalm 15. So she kind of looked at me like, a couple of things happened during the week in my thinking that I reflected on from about two weeks ago. That as I thought about it, brothers and sisters, I thought, I don't think we're by accident. I don't believe in accidents anyway. I believe in a big sovereign God. I think everything happens for a purpose. Sometimes I understand it, sometimes I don't. But at any rate, I was thinking about a couple of things that had happened, and I was reading through Psalm 15, and I thought, you know what? I want to speak on Psalm 15. Here's the first thing. Now, Psalm 15, I'll break it down. We'll break it down and let you see. It breaks down really clean. I mean, verse 1, David asks a question, who is it that gets to have consistent fellowship with you? 2 through 5a, he says, what are characteristics of a person who has consistent fellowship with you? And he lists 11 characteristics, 3 positive, then 3 negative, then 3 positive, and then 2 negative. So 11 characteristics. And then the third part, in 5b, he gives a promise. This will be true for you if you are a person who consistently demonstrates and emulates these characteristics. And let me make a couple more thoughts just before we start. Psalm 15 is written to people who are already used to being in the house of the Lord. His question from number 1 is, who's the one who abides? It was a word that meant to get to be a guest in the temple. Now remember, there was no temple. Solomon built that, so at that point it was God in a box. That's what David had. But who is the one that gets to be around God in the box? What is he or she supposed to be like? And then verse 1b, it says, who's the one that gets to dwell? That was the idea of who's the one that can pitch it would be temporary, but a tent, so that they get to continually be in fellowship with you. So here's what I want you to understand. Big picture. Psalm 15 is not written to say, how do you start a relationship with God? Psalm 15 is how do you stay in fellowship with God, which would assume you already have a relationship to start with him. All right? In fancy language, we would say it's not a question about soteriology. It's not a question about how do you become a Christian. You'd say it's about sanctification. How do you walk as close to God in fellowship with him as you can? So it needs to be understood first. Why? Because someone walks up and says, is this saying that you can work your way to heaven as long as you do these 11 things? No, because he was already dealing with people who were in fellowship with God, but David is wanting to know, how do you make sure you stay in that fellowship? So I want that to be clean. But here, as I was thinking through these verses, 2 things happen, and again, I will believe that they were for a purpose. It may sound silly, but I hope you take them serious. Number 1 was this. I was sleeping, minding my own business, and I was having a dream. I don't take stands on dreams. Colossians 2 says, don't do that. Your stand is on Christ. People that want to be dream receivers, dream expositors, whatever, you're too spiritual for me. The Colossians were warned, quit taking your stand on dreams and things and visions you say you've seen. So I'm not going there with this. But I was having a dream, and in my dream, somebody who in real life has given me a hard time for years was really taking a beating. And in my dream, I was on the side watching God put a beating on somebody. And I started clapping. And I was saying in my dream, that person finally got what was coming to them, because they've smoked a lot of people, but you knew all along. I woke up, and I felt horrible. I thought about Proverbs 24:17. Guys, I've preached great sermons in my sleep. I've even been preaching in my sermons in my sleep when I wake up and write something down because I go, that wasn't half bad, you know. Maybe that wasn't just the food I was eating. I have learned that I am responsible for my subconscious mind every bit as much as I am my conscious mind. I have learned in dreams when I'm in a rotten situation to wake myself up. And you may think that's silly. I'm not. I'm very serious. I don't think I'm free to live one way consciously and then in my subconscious mind think anything I want, do anything I want. When I'm aware that's contrary to God, I usually wake up and go, no, that's not right. But here's what went through my mind as I'm clapping while this person is taking a beating for what I think they deserved anyway. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls. Do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles, or the Lord will see it and be displeased and turn his anger away. Rejoicing was public. You could see it. So no public announcement that, I'm glad you see that, but do not let your heart be glad. That's something no one can even see. In other words, Solomon makes a distinction between what happens in the heart and what the actual expression is, and they can be the same or they can be different. And I thought, for all I have done for trying to make sure that my physical expression is love you, pray for you all the time, wish you the very best, I thought there's something in me, if I'm willing to start clapping when I see them get a beating, that I need to say, God, you need to forgive me, because I am responsible for my subconscious mind. Because sometimes when the heart and the expression are not in line, I don't believe it's like, it doesn't matter. I believe God may be saying, you know what? Remember when he says in Deuteronomy 6, you're to teach, when you're awake, when you're in between, when you're at work, I want your word going through your brain. I don't think I get a pass just because I say, well, I was kind of half awake, half asleep. I was just really tired. Well, I don't believe that. I'm accountable. So that's number one. Number two, 2 weeks ago I was in Boise, and I told my wife and my son, who are with me, Jonathan's here, good to see you, son. I've been to many family reunions, but it was the most enlightening reunion I have ever been to in my life. Some of them I go because my parents used to drag me. Some of them I go because I got to represent my mom's side because my brothers live too far away. Some of them I actually enjoy going to. This was one that he was really curious from some of the information. And again, I'm thinking integrity. I'm thinking righteousness. I'm thinking Psalm 15. I'm thinking that integrity comes from the heart. That's what you don't see. Righteousness is the expression of what comes from the heart. That's what you do see. I started thinking about what this world defines as integrity and righteous living. And then I thought about what my Bible says about integrity and righteous living. And I just thought, I wish it was so easy. Here's what happened. I've said before up here, we've talked about this, I know that on my dad's side of the family, I've got Jewish blood. I know that. I've looked through the genealogies, and there's so many names that I finally approached my dad probably 2 decades ago. He died in 2000, so it had to be more than 2 decades ago. But I'd come down from here, and I said, Dad, all these genealogies you work on, I said, there's so many Jewish names, and yet you've always told me I'm Scotch, Irish, and Dutch. And I said, none of this looks right. And so he finally said, yeah, you've got Jewish blood. I said, okay. I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, it was hard during the war. I said, Dad, the Savior of the world's a Jew. He died for the world. Why don't you think I'd be excited to find out I got some kind of tie back to that? It may not be a whole lot. I don't know how much it is, because I'm not a genealogist. But, and then I realized on my grandma's side, very Jewish. Then I started looking on my dad's side, and there's still Payne, which is an English name, but there's a whole lot of Jewish people on the other side of that too. So I'm telling this story to my first cousin. All my aunts and uncles are dead. My mom was the youngest of 8. She died at age 95 in 2017. So now the first cousins, we're dying off too. When I got first cousins in their 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s kind of thing. But I was telling the little story, and I said, you're never going to believe what my mom told me in 2016. And I'm talking to two of my first cousins, and they said, what's that? And I said, Mom, we've got so many pictures in our family that I have seen that we look like we're Native Americans. And you always told me that we're Welsh. So English on Dad's side, Welsh on your side, and that's why all the high cheekbones and the red skin and all that, But I said she was going to face a surgery that we didn't know if she was going to live or not through it. They amputated a leg. She was old. And I said, do I have Native American blood in me? And she said, yeah, you do. It's through Columbus, my grandfather, your great-grandfather. I wish you'd have told me earlier. Yeah. So I'm telling this story to my cousins, and I said, did your parents ever tell you anything about this? Because my mom was quiet about all of this. And one of my cousins says, I don't know, I've heard stories, but I don't know much about it. Other one says, you want me to tell you the truth? And I said, yeah, I'd really appreciate the truth. All our parents are dead. I'm not going to hear it if somebody doesn't tell us the truth. And he said, your grandmother was your mom's mom. My grandmother was 100% Choctaw Indian. And said, your mother was horribly ashamed of that. And her sister was horribly ashamed of that. But the other 6 were all just fine with it. So she never wanted you to know. And I said, why would I care? One way or another. I just would like to know who I am. I don't care, what it is. And I said, I'd like to document it, if it's true. And said, that's going to be hard. I said, why is that? He said, your grandmother's family, 2 generations back, were part of the Trail of Tears when 5 different tribes were driven from Mississippi through Oklahoma, and a lot of people died. And said, your grandmother's parents worked for Columbus, was his first name, and that's the one Mom said, yeah, you're Native American. So I knew he had Indian blood. I didn't know how much. He said he owned a large farm in Hart, Missouri. He was Indian, so he hired Indians to work on the farm with him. He gave them a place because he said things were really hard there for Indians. And I said, what does that have to do with my grandmother? He said, your grandmother's parents were both Indians. We think they died from scarlet fever. They both died, and it left a little baby with no parents. So he said, your great-grandfather, Columbus, took your grandmother, Ethel, in, gave him her last name, and raised her as his own. He said, that's why she doesn't look like the other siblings in pictures, which I had noticed that, but I couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody. Like, what's this about? I said, so if Grandma was 100% Choctaw Indian, that means you're 50%, and that means I'm 25%. He said, yeah. I said, I wish I'd have known when I was going to school, man. I could have gone through a whole lot cheaper, And I sure wish I'd have known for Jonathan, because he'd still get through, cheaper. But I said, I'm too old now to worry about that. But I said, sounds to me like we're not going to document it. It's going to be tough because we don't know what her parents' name was. She just assumed that she was a biological child until he told her about it. She told my grandfather about it. My grandfather told his 4 boys about it. He said actually all kids were told, but the 4 boys, they were fine. But two of the sisters, and mine was one of the 2 sisters, just said, don't want to hear anything about it. I said, okay. Now, here was the thing, and I'm thinking about integrity and character, because I'm taking a long time to get through this, but I want you to see this. Before 2 weeks ago on Saturday at about 2 o'clock, I understood from the way the culture I live in looks at me, I am a Caucasian, heterosexual, racist, bigot, and xenophobe by definition. Because that's how this culture defines Caucasian males who are heterosexual. We don't get it. Okay. I said in 1 hour, I got transformed being at least a quarter Jewish, maybe more than that. I mean, my family was enslaved for 430 years in Egypt and helped make the richest nation in the world rich. While my family built bricks and died. And on the other side, I'm at least 25% Native American now through my mom, I find out, which means I don't think anybody in this country's been treated any worse. Kicked off the land, robbed, stolen. I mean, you think about it. And I said, in an hour, I changed from the empowered majority to I am now an unempowered, non-racist, non-bigoted, non-xenophobic, because at least half of me is part of what would be considered ethnic minorities. And I just thought it didn't have to change my vocabulary, didn't have to change my actions. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, in 1 hour, I just was totally transformed. And then I thought to myself, I don't think that's what God's word says about integrity that he recognizes and honors and righteousness that he. So I ask myself, when I start colliding between what culture teaches me about someone and what the Bible teaches me about someone, where do I take my stand? And I would suggest it probably needs to be on what God says about someone, whether it happens to agree with culture or not. Because I don't think in 1 hour I changed how I think, how I speak. I don't think that changed. I really don't. Doesn't mean I'm horrible or I'm great, but it doesn't mean I'm horrible by definition either. Just because of what culture has defined as what is characteristic of someone depending on what group they're associated with or what background their families had. Because I guess I could make a case mine was pretty torn up if you go back far enough. So I was very interested as I started reading through Psalm 15 going, verse, ask the question, who is going to abide in your tent and who is going to dwell on your holy hill? That's his question. What does it take to be a guest inside the tent? What does it take to be a resident on the hill? Because I want my fellowship to be with you all the time, not part of the time. I don't want it turned on and turned off because of circumstances. God, I want to walk with you. That's what David's saying. He gives 11 characteristics that he says should be true to varying degrees. And I want to say that again if I didn't earlier. There was only one that's perfect. Only one. So if a person says, how you doing with some of these, I would say I'm probably in process just like everybody in the room. If you expect perfection of somebody, and you're going to see by the time we're done, this breaks down 3 ways. God, I think I can make the case and show you. God says the way he views integrity and character is through your heart, which means motivation, number 1. Verses 2 and 3. Through your speech, 3, 4, first part of 5 and 4. Through your speech, and then finally, 5a, through your actions. It starts with your heart, it comes through your mouth, and it becomes what you do. I don't see any of that having to deal with what party am I politically? How many verses do I memorize out of my Bible? What neighborhood do I live in? I just go, it's kind of a different set of standards. And I want to know what God's had to say about it. So first I see the question. Who are going to be the ones that you judge as having integrity? I wrote this note. It's going to sound cynical, but I'll read it to you. I didn't last service, but I thought about it. Maybe I should have. If I'm looking to culture to tell me what it means to have integrity and to live righteously, I thought, I drive an electric car. I promote socialism. I reject capitalism. I don't eat meat. I recycle. I adopt pets from the pound instead of buy them. I reject moral absolutes. I accept sexual fluidity. I acknowledge that climate change is the biggest problem planet Earth is facing. I utilize solar and wind power rather than gas or oil. I'll be loved out in the community square if I can say, yeah, that's me. I just don't find those in the text. So I'm back to my same question. What is it that when you look at someone and you're interacting, you're thinking about what your actions are going to be or not, what is it that determines how you do, why you do, what you do, who you are when people are watching, who you are when people aren't watching, what you say when people you know are listening, what you say when people aren't? Does the heart integrity match the righteous living? I thought about Ananias and Sapphira. Remember when they offered the property? How do you think the community, the Christian community, they were Christians. They just got caught lying. But when they first walk up and say, we sold a piece of property and we want you to divide it for the people in need, and here's how much we sold it for, do you think people are going, man, that is awfully cool? Ananias and Sapphira, man, they're a have, and they're helping the people so that it said there was no need among any. Find out, though, that what they said and what had actually happened were not congruous. There was conflict. They lied. They lied about what they were doing, why they were doing it. My thought was culture would have bought their lie. But there was somebody bigger than culture that was evaluating the situation. And when Peter says, you aren't lying to men, you're lying to God, it reminded me, men don't see in my heart, but God sure does. I could blow smoke by you this morning. I could have made both of those things up. I didn't. The whole thing about the reunion, that's true. It blew my mind. I've spent more time looking at lineages in the last 3 or 4 days than I have my whole life. And my dad was always looking at those. I go, I'd like to know what's going on here. That could have been a lie. The thing about clapping could have been a lie. And that's true. But you don't know. Hopefully I have enough integrity that you go, yeah, if he says that's what happened, probably what he was thinking. But the truth is, we can smoke each other. We get used to deceiving and smoking each other with the integrity. It does not mean that God's going, yeah, you got me fooled too. Because we don't. Which puts me back at the same proposition. Am I looking to culture for my marching orders, or am I looking to God? I want God to say, well done. And I want God Almighty to say, you're in consistent fellowship with me. Not perfect, nobody is, but consistent. You're working towards trying to be more consistent. When you see something that's right, you don't say it's not right, you just say, I'll try to deal with it. 3 positive, 3 negative, 3 positive, and 2 negative. Let's start walking through them. He asks the question in 1. How's he answer it? Who has integrity? Who walks righteously? Who are the ones that are going to be in consistent fellowship with you? First one, the one who walks with integrity. I already said, the one who walks with integrity, it means there's no deception in the heart. So it deals with motivation. It deals with the stuff that people don't necessarily see. The one who walks with integrity and works righteousness. That's the action. So the one, he's saying, where the heart motivation, which is internal, and the external action that people can watch, they match up. They're one and the same. It's not Ananias and Sapphira saying one thing but meaning another. It's not you walking up and saying, that is the prettiest dress, honey, I've ever seen. And she goes, oh, thank you. And then when you walk away, go, did she dress in the dark? I mean, what in the world? Was that ugly or not? You say one thing, you just don't mean it. That never happens even among Christians, does it? So first, the heart, inside. The actions outside match up. I don't think one thing and say another, because that becomes a show if that's what the case is about. And that's not integrity, and that's not righteousness. That's hypocrisy. Number 3, he says, he speaks truth in his heart. What he's speaking is what is coming consistently from the inside. In other words, think of Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinks in his mind, what? Think of, I skipped some of the verses already, but I'll go ahead and pick some of them up. Put Mark 7:21-23 by me. What does Jesus have to say about the difference between the heart and what you actually see? Read with me. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceeds evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, and adulteries. Deeds of coveting, wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things proceed from within and defile them. If I don't take care of what's inside, I can already tell you what's going to be coming outside. So, integrity, motivation inside, righteousness, the actions you see outside, that's an issue God's going to look at. What comes out of my mouth? He speaks truth. What he's thinking and seeing in the heart is what comes out of the mouth. There's no disconnect between the two. First negative. He does not slander with his tongue. The word slander meant to be a talebearer or a backbiter. That's what the word meant. It meant to purposely pass on cutting, edgy things about someone to hurt them. It's purposeful. I thought about Proverbs 6, 16 to 19. That's where it says there are 7 things that God hates. Let's read it. 7 things that God hates. Okay? 3 of the 7 all deal with the same thing. Check this out. See what you think. There are 6 things which the Lord hates. 7 are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, hearts that devise wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among the brethren. I thought, 3 of the 7 deal with my mouth and how I use it. Apparently, God puts a priority on that. And I think I can make a case some of these others line up with this too. But I thought about Proverbs 26:20. See if it's up behind me. A lack of wood, the fire goes out. Where there is no whispering, contention dies down. Another one, I've got several, but I'm going to shorten some of them. Proverbs 20:19. Let's see if I can find that one, because I didn't give this one to Nancy, so it wouldn't be fair to ask her to try and pull it up. He who goes about as a slanderer, same word, reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with gossips. I know this person doesn't control their mouth. Then why do you put things in their hands that you know they're going to turn around and use? And if it's slander, it's backbiting, it's telling tales, all for a purpose of hurting somebody. Carl, you want character? Carl, you want to be seen as righteous? Carl, you want to be seen with integrity? Then 3 positive things. Guard your heart, guard your actions, and guard your mouth. But first negative, don't be one who participates. Because see, when you receive it or you pass it on, you're still participating in it. When people walk up to you and share things and have no biblical reason, no evidential for his opinion, do you say, yeah, keep sharing it with all the good stuff? Or do you say, you know what? I'm not part of the solution. I'm not part of the problem. You probably shouldn't be talking to me unless you've talked to them. You'd probably lose a few friends, even in Christian churches, if you did that. But maybe it would be good ones to learn. They don't slander. What's the second thing? They do no evil to their neighbor. The slander was speaking in a backbiting way. Doing no evil focused on the action. So not only does the one who has integrity and character not participate in speech that is cutting, but they do no evil in their action towards their what? Neighbor. I thought about Leviticus 19:18. You're to love your neighbor. I thought about Jesus, Matthew 22. You know, what are the important commandments? Rabbis say there's 613 of them. Moses said there's 10 of them. What do you say? No, there's really 2. You love God with your whole heart. You love your neighbor as yourself. And all the rest of them are incorporated into these 2. I thought, isn't it interesting that whole notion about attempting to sacrificially love my neighbor was something that God says he's looking at as far as integrity and character? Why? I think because it's easy to like the people you already like. It's easy to give the benefit of the doubt to somebody you already like. Well, he or she wouldn't do that. They're I mean, what about when it's someone you don't know, but they're still part of your Christian family, which, come to think of it, is eternal? The others are for time. Do you speak evil? That's slander. Or do you practice evil? That means you actually get involved in deeds where you know instead of loving your neighbor, you're purposely harming your neighbor. God says, I'm taking note of both of those. What's the third negative? Does not participate. Let's read it. Back from 15. At least you think Carl's making it up. Third negative, he does not, that's how it's introduced, is a not. That's why I called it a negative. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's just he introduces the first thing is just positive statements. Second thing, don't be involved in this either. Does not take up a reproach against his what? Friend. Taking up a reproach, what the language was meaning is you're being a conduit to continue something about your friend that is not putting them in a good light. Is that how you treat friends? He says the person with integrity chooses not to participate that way. Deuteronomy 19:15, do we have it? A single witness shall not rise up against a man on account of any iniquity or sin which he has committed. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed. Well, you know what I heard? That's not supposed to go anywhere other than tell the person, grow up a little bit. If you got something to say, you got reasons for saying it, put it on the table. Let's go. But if this has to deal with this kind of thing, opinion, I'm not going to participate against a friend. About Proverbs 17, 9, and I got 9b. He who conceals a transgression seeks love. He who repeats a matter separates intimate what? Now, I don't think part A is saying cover over lies, because you've already been told if there's evidence something's a lie, deal with it. Remember that whole thing about leavens, a little leaven, a whole lump? Something's wrong, deal with it. But I think the principle there, what he's after is, Carl, you can divide friends by things that you say. How about 17, I have it on 17a, 17:17. A friend loves at what? If he's your friend. I remember when Jake Hardy, someone was talking to him at one of our retreats when he was still alive, and someone told him, he said, they're my friend. I couldn't tell him that. And he said, if you're afraid to tell him the truth, quit calling him a friend. I like that. He says, you don't love them. If you're not going to tell them the truth, you don't love them. Well, if they're your friend, but you're lying to them, why do you call them your friend? So what are we saying? On the positive, integrity, the heart. It coincides with the righteous, the action. It coincides with the tongue, which you know from the inside, God knows what's true. But you speak that which is on the outside. You don't slander. You don't backbite. Why? Because God says don't. You do no evil. It means now it moves from talk to action. Your actions are supposed to heal, not hurt. You don't participate in passing on stuff about a friend if you don't know it's true. Now, back to the positive. Despises a reprobate. Am I making it up or is it there? Verse 4. In whose eyes a reprobate is despised. Reprobate. Well, let's make sure we got this one clean. How many people in life do not sin and come short of the glory of God? There was how many that didn't fall under that blessing from Adam and Eve? Say one. Outside of Jesus, there's nobody in this room, including me or anyone else, that does everything perfectly. We already know that as a foundation, right? So if what he's saying is you despise a reprobate, I go, oh, that guy's a reprobate because he likes chocolate ice cream instead of vanilla. Or, you go, no, a reprobate was one who insists on doing evil and purposely doing it. You make a distinction between someone who just loves running to evil and doing evil versus someone that said, I hate it when I fall in holes I don't see. I don't even like it sometimes when I fall in holes I do see. but God's got his hand on me and I need to get up. Because he promises when I confess, he cleanses, which means whatever that was, it's gone. Well, what if people agree? That's fine. What if people don't agree? I don't really care. Because the Creator says, when I forgive, I cleanse. So let's get up and keep moving. Reprobate is the one who's proud of the fact that they run to evil. He says, the one who is faithful to God in fellowship does not spend lots of intimate time with ones who run to evil and love doing it. In other words, guard your friends. Guard your friends. What's 1 Corinthians 15:33 say? Don't be deceived. What? Bad company will corrupt good morals. We become like the people we hang with. Oh, then I got to live cloistered in a box all by myself and I can't talk to anybody, at least they can tell. That's not what he's talking about. But there's a difference between someone, I foul up, I want to deal with it, I foul up, let's talk about it, work it through, versus I could care less. It's who I am. You don't like it? I could care less. I love to run to evil. That's the reprobate. He says the one in fellowship with God doesn't wink at it, doesn't say it's okay. He says, I really despise that. What's the other side of the coin for the one he says is in constant fellowship? He honors those who fear the Lord. So not only does he say, I don't want my intimate relationships tied up with people who hate God, I want to be sure that I purposely attempt to honor those who walk the walk. Remember, after I became a Christian, remember, illustrations are always selective. They make the point the way you want it to be made, always. So you could give illustrations of a different kind and say, maybe it didn't work that way. But I remember when a group of us had become brand new Christians. For my buddies, it was June 16th, 1970. For me, it was June 17th, 1970. Both of us at Young Life, and we were both rascals, okay? We hopped in a car, Friday night, Saturday night, 4 of us, VW Bug. And now, ladies, please don't hold this against me for the rest of my life, because I'm a new creature in Christ, right? But we said we were going to go hogging. That's what we called it. It means you pick up anybody you can pick up for the night. You have no interest in them. You're just going to use them. And we called it going hogging, which is demeaning in every way. I hopped in the car, and when one of them said, we're going hogging, I said, stop the car. And they said, what? I said, I gave my life to Christ up there at Woodleaf, California, and I said, I'm done going the way I was going. I want to go in a different direction. We're on the boonies. We're driving out. They don't have them anymore, but they used to be outdoor theaters that were huge. And we had a board that you could lay down so the spikes, you'd lay down the board and then you'd drive your car over it and then pick the board up and put it back in your car so the spikes don't break. You can watch it for free, which is cheating too, right? But it's just all part of being a schemer. Those 4 were the 3, they were angry at me. And I finally said, just stop the car, I'll walk. And they said, we're out nowhere. I said, I don't care. I'm going a different direction. Well, they didn't want me to get out of the car, so they go, man, do you know what a killjoy you are? And one of them said, can't you just keep it on Sunday? I mean, on Sunday it makes sense. But man, this is the weekend. I said, so it's supposed to change who we are, why we do what we do, depending on the day of the week. I disagree. They were pretty stony cold to me the rest of the night because I ruined their plans. Next morning at Sunday school, a mighty senior and my buddy was a mighty junior, but the pastor asked for someone to share something that God had done in their life. I had no idea what was going to be said. My buddy stands up and he said, we almost made some real stupid decisions last night, but one of the 4 of us said don't, and we didn't. And then he looked over and he said, man, I'm glad we didn't do that. Okay, that's a great example because it worked right? I'm sure I have somewhere I could say I screwed it up and I did the wrong thing too. But I'm saying, do you understand, Karl, that the friends you choose can lead you to good decisions or they can push you towards wrong decisions? and you are responsible for the relationships you develop. And if they are people that despise God, do not make them your intimate friends. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 18. Couldn't be any clearer on that one, right? Come out from among them, be separate from them. Paul was having to tell them that because they were now believers, but they were still living like they were Corinthians, which meant to prostitute. His word is his bond. You can take it to the bank. That was the Karl Payne paraphrase of, he swears to his own hurt and does not change. Read Matthew 5, 33 to 37. The key's 37. Again, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not make a false vow, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, make no oaths at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your statements be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond that is of evil. I swear to you, I'm telling the truth. Oh, this time? I mean, you told me before you weren't? Were you lying to me? No, I just mean I'm really... Do I have character and reputation that says if you say yes, people say he or she means yes? If you say no, he or she means no. I don't have to say really, really, really I mean it this time. Then you've got a reputation being a liar. If you're the one that put that in action, then you're the one that can do something about it. Change the reputation by living with integrity, where the inside and the outside match. If people can see the one when it doesn't match, they'll surely start seeing it when it does, which means never quit. Never quit. I'm so far down, there's no point in even trying again. Are you still breathing? Yeah, then God's still got plans for you. Because if he was done with you, you'd quit breathing. But I don't do it perfectly. Nobody does. But I can learn as I go. I can attempt to be stronger today than I was yesterday. And I pray to God I'm stronger tomorrow than I was today, and the day after, etc. Little steps end up covering a whole lot of territory. We rarely take giant steps towards righteousness or giant steps towards sin. Most of the time, there are steps in between. Carl, start catching it when they're the baby steps, and then you never have to get caught with the big steps. Because it just didn't happen. You killed it before it started. Well, you don't get it. You're a preacher. You're not tempted. I mean, I'm just a regular old person. I'm tempted. I go, really? You're naive. His word is his bond. He does not profit from a fellow Christian's true need. Leviticus 25, 35, 38. What's it say? In the case of a countryman, that meant a fellow what? Contextually, what did this mean? A Jew. It was written in Levitical law. Now, in the case of a countryman of yours, if becomes poor and his means with regard to you falter, then you are to sustain him like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may what? Do not take usury at interest from him. In other words, this isn't a fake need that I have bailed you out of 14 times. And you're just going, this sucker's soft and I can use him or her any way I want. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying when one of your fellow countrymen really hits a genuine need and they don't have any way out of it. Put it back up. When you you give them money, it's not a loan. Why? You revere your God that your countrymen may live. You shall not give him your silver at interest nor your food for gain. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. What's he saying? When it's a genuine need, one of your countrymen, who would that be in this world for us? People that have bowed their knee to the Lord Jesus. That was written to the Jews, but if I want to make some kind of application that's not too far off, I say, do I see someone's need and say, holy smokes, I wanted your collection of ball cards anyway, so I'll give you a penny on a dollar, and you know what, I'll help you out, but I want your whole card. I mean, whatever it is. You really hurting? Yeah, that car, that's a nice car. What's book value on it? $25K. How much you need? $3,000, or I'm going to lose my house payment. I'll give you $3,000 for the car. In other words, when it's a countryman, when it's family, he says you don't put your money out at interest. In other words, your relationship that is eternal is more important than your wallet. Now, how do you make sure it's not abused? Because again, you're talking about someone in genuine need. You're not talking about someone that says, I can game the system and you're such a fool, I'll game you too. Different situation. So I think to myself, character from God's perspective starts with the heart, moves to the tongue, is viewed in actions. Verbally, I don't slander. Physically, I don't participate in evil, at least not purposely. I don't participate in passing on as a conduit something where I don't even know if it's true or not anyway. I despise the one who despises God. I want him to be a Christian, but I'm not going to pretend like I agree with him, because I don't. I'm not going to be the scraggly kitty savior. They've always got a reason why they don't walk with God. They've always got a reason why I just can't come to God. Always got a reason why, that Jesus stuff is too far away. And I somehow get guilted into thinking it's my job, even though I don't believe. I go, you know what? Sometimes it's time, he says with the reprobate, to just say, I guess when you're on bottom looking up, give me a shout. But right now, it's all a game. How do they treat Christians? With honor, respect, and preference. Galatians 6:10, what's it say? Put that one up for me. Galatians 6:10. While we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially who? If you give all of your money to save the whales and save the pets, that is your business. I don't tell people where they have to give their money. That's not my money, it's yours. But I would suggest to you that if you've got Christian family, Christian people around you that are struggling, not because they've been stupid, but because there's genuine need, and you continue to, adopt more and more dogs and more whales and whatever else you do, but man, by the time the month is over, there's just no money for my eternal brother or sister, I go, I think that's a priority that's out of step, needs to be looked at. That's your call, not mine. His word is his bond. He does not profit from fellow Christians of their true need. And lastly, he rejects a bribe. Exodus 23:8 is a good one. What's it say? You shall not take a bribe, for a bribe binds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of justice. A bribe was money, favor, or interest that was used to corrupt someone's conduct. And whether I am the one making the bribe or the one receiving the bribe, then I am participating in corrupting somebody's conduct. So what's he say? Don't be a part of it. I mean, politically, it's just a way of life. Business-wise, it's just a way of life. I mean, where do you not see that, Carl? I mean, when are you going to live in the 21st century? I mean, I guess I'm just kind of concerned about what this culture tells me is virtuous and righteous and living with integrity, and finding out, does God share the same opinion? Because one day, I'm going to figure out, if I haven't already, cultural opinions change in your lifetime more often than you can count. God's word doesn't. I said this before, I don't remember how long ago it was. I would rather hear God say, well done, and people around me say, you're an idiot, you don't get it, than to have people around me from culture say, well done, you get it, and God saying, which part of what I said did you not understand, Carl? How clear do I have to be? Oh, he hates me. No, I'm breathing, so he still has plans for me. But deal with it. He rejects bribes. What's the promise for the one that lives this way? It's 15b. I'll read it. At least I butcher it. He who does these things will never what? I thought of Matthew, we won't go to it, but I thought of 7:24 through 27. Remember the thing about when you build your house on the sand and everything hits you, it's shakeable, it gets destroyed, but the one whose house is on the rock, you can't shake them. I thought, Carl, do you want to have a faith that is unshakable? Yeah, I do. Then build it on the right foundation. Build it on the right foundation. Culture represents sand. Christ represents rock. I don't do it perfectly. You must. I don't. Do you? Talk to my wife. Talk to my kid. Let me talk to your wife or talk to your kids. None of us do things perfectly, but there's a difference between falling in a hole and saying, who cares, versus going, dag nabbit. No. I don't have to fall in that hole. I'm not going to fall in that hole. True of God. I'm going to read these to you because I'm out of time. I put, what's true of God? Can we do these real fast, Nancy? 1 John 5, or 1 John 1:5. God is blameless. I want you to see something. I want you to see the symmetry. 1 John 1:5, true of God. He's blameless in his integrity. This is the message we have heard from him and announced to you. God is what? There is no darkness. What else do we learn about God? Ezra 9:15. So in his motives, integrity, he's light, no darkness. In his actions, righteous in his actions, blessed in his integrity. O God of Israel, you are righteous. We have been left an escaped remnant as it is this day. Behold, we are before you in our guilt, for no one can stand before you because of this. God is righteous. He keeps his promises. He's righteous in his action. 1 Samuel 15:29. How about his speech? He's truthful in his speech. He's righteous in his action. He's blameless in his integrity. What should be true of a Christian? Psalm 15:2. We've already got it. He walks in integrity, he or she. How about his works? 15:2b. His works, what you see, the outside expression, it's righteous. In other words, it lines up from the heart to the action, one and the same. 15:3. He speaks the truth. I think heart, action, speech. True of God should be true of me as a Christian. Then I thought about this. I thought about my judgment that's to come. I'm promised. 1 Corinthians 4, I'm conscious of nothing against myself, our motives at the bema seat. Yet I am not by this acquitted. The one who examines me is the Lord. Therefore do not go passing judgment before the time. Wait until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the things hidden in darkness and disclose the very what? How about our works? We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds and body according to whether they were what? Bell curve, kind of good, real good, not so good, really bad. No, they're good or bad. How about our speech? Matthew 12:36 and 37. I tell you that every careless word people speak, you will give an account for it in the day of judgment. By your words, you'll be justified. By your words, you'll be condemned. What hit me as I was thinking about that was God makes statements about who he is, talking about his integrity, motives, his works, and the way he speaks. Christians were given admonition. Guard your heart, guard your tongue, guard your action. And then I thought, is it coincidental that in the judgments we're promised at the bema seat, that we're promised we're going to give an account for our motives, our works, and our mouth? I thought, that's perfect symmetry with those. Does it scare me off? I suppose it should, but I'm still breathing. So I still have hope. I'm not quitting. Never quit. I'll finish with this. These 11 characteristic traits are not up for debate. They are pragmatic. They're not theoretical. People can choose to defy God, redefine God, or disobey God, but this does not change the truth of his commands or the surety of his eternal judgment that he has promised is coming. Creator, creation, potter, clay. I'm betting my money on the Creator. And I've bet my life on the Creator. Father, please use us to your glory. I pray to the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. You're dismissed.